Immigration. It's one of the most talked about issues today. But what happens when countries decide not to welcome immigrants anymore? From tightening borders to deporting people back to unsafe places, some nations are rewriting the rules. Why are they doing this? Is it about security, protecting resources, or something more? Stick with us as we explore 10 countries making tough decisions on immigration. Some of these policies might shock you. And if you enjoy deep dives like this, make sure to subscribe to AZ Travelaria for more content that gets you thinking. Let's get into it. 10. Denmark. Denmark is known for its picturesque landscapes and high quality of life, but it's also making headlines for its tough stance on immigration. Syrian refugees are facing an uncertain future as Denmark has started revoking their residency permits. The government says parts of Syria are now safe for return, though many refugees disagree and fear for their safety. Denmark is also considering a bold plan, sending asylum seekers to other countries like Rwanda, while their cases are being processed. Many see this as a way to discourage people from seeking asylum in Denmark altogether. To make things even harder, asylum seekers are often housed in remote areas, far from cities and jobs. Critics argue this is designed to make them feel unwelcome. Denmark insists it's about protecting the country's resources and social harmony, but the backlash continues to grow. 9. Australia. Australia's immigration policies are some of the toughest in the world. If you arrive by boat without permission, you won't step foot on the mainland. Instead, you'll be sent to offshore detention centers on islands like Nauru or Manus Island in Papua New Guinea. Life in these centers is far from easy. Reports of poor living conditions, lack of health care, and mental health struggles are common. Some people have been stuck in detention for years, with no clear idea of when or if they'll ever leave. The Australian government says these measures are necessary to stop human smuggling and prevent dangerous sea crossings, but critics call it cruel and inhumane. Even recognized refugees often remain stuck in limbo, as Australia limits their resettlement options. 8. India. India has taken a strong stance against undocumented immigrants, particularly targeting Rohingya refugees and illegal Bangladeshi migrants. Rohingya Muslims, who fled violence in Myanmar, often live in poor conditions in India under constant threat of deportation. The government's National Register of Citizens, NRC, in Assam aimed to identify illegal immigrants but left nearly 2 million people stateless. This caused widespread panic and uncertainty, especially for those who couldn't prove their citizenship. On top of that, India passed the Citizenship Amendment Act, CAA, which offers citizenship to some persecuted religious groups, but excludes Muslims. Critics say this creates a dangerous divide, while the government argues it's about protecting the country's resources and identity. 7. Malaysia. Malaysia is another country ramping up deportations. Immigration raids are common, especially in cities, targeting undocumented workers and refugees. Those caught are sent to overcrowded detention centers, where conditions are harsh. Rohingya refugees, who escaped unimaginable violence in Myanmar, are among the most affected. Despite international calls to protect them, Malaysia continues to detain and deport them. The government says it's enforcing the law, but human rights groups argue that Malaysia is failing its humanitarian responsibilities. Officials justify these actions by saying undocumented immigrants put pressure on public services and compete for jobs with locals. While this reasoning has support among some Malaysians, the global community continues to criticize the harsh treatment of refugees and migrants. 6. Turkey. Turkey hosts one of the largest refugee populations in the world, with over 3.6 million Syrians. While the country was once praised for its open-door policy, things have shifted in recent years. Refugees without proper documentation now face deportation, often to safe zones in Syria. The issue is that these so-called safe zones are not always safe. Many refugees fear being sent back to a country still grappling with violence and instability. The Turkish government, however, says it needs to ease the burden on its economy and resources. Public resentment toward refugees is growing in Turkey, and this has pushed the government to take tougher measures. While Turkey's role in the refugee crisis is undeniable, its recent policies have sparked criticism from international organizations. 5. Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia has long relied on migrant workers, but the country is also known for deporting thousands of undocumented workers every year. Most of these migrants come from places like Ethiopia, Yemen, and Bangladesh. The government conducts regular crackdowns on those who overstay their visas or work without proper permits. Once detained, these workers are often held in poor conditions while they wait for deportation. Saudi officials argue that these actions are necessary to regulate the labor market and prioritize jobs for Saudi citizens. But human rights groups have raised concerns about the treatment of migrant workers, many of whom face exploitation and abuse before they're deported. 4. Greece. Greece has become a gateway to Europe for refugees and migrants, but the country is increasingly known for its hardline immigration policies. One of the most controversial practices is pushbacks, where Greek authorities intercept boats carrying migrants and force them back into Turkish waters. Even for those who make it to Greece, life isn't easy. Refugee camps are overcrowded and lack basic facilities like clean water and health care. Strict new laws make it harder for people to apply for asylum, leaving many in limbo. The Greek government says it's doing what it can with limited resources, but critics argue that these policies violate international laws and put vulnerable people at risk. Greece's actions have sparked debates about the balance between border control and humanitarian responsibilities. 3. Italy. Italy is often the first stop for migrants crossing the Mediterranean, but it's also becoming one of the toughest places for them to stay. The government has passed strict laws that make it harder for migrants to seek asylum and easier to deport those who are undocumented. Search and rescue missions in the Mediterranean have also been reduced, leaving more migrant boats stranded at sea. While the government says these measures are about protecting national security and resources, humanitarian organizations warn they're putting lives at risk. Italy's approach reflects a broader trend across Europe, where countries are focusing more on border control and less on supporting migrants and refugees. 2. United Kingdom. The UK has taken a hardline approach to immigration, especially after Brexit. One of its most controversial policies is the Rwanda Plan. Under this plan, asylum seekers who arrive in the UK are sent to Rwanda to have their cases processed. The government says this will deter illegal crossings of the English Channel, but the plan has faced widespread criticism. Many believe it violates human rights and creates more problems than it solves. Post-Brexit rules have also made it harder for migrants to settle in the UK. Stricter visa requirements and increased deportations are now the norm. While the government insists these measures are necessary, critics argue they undermine the UK's reputation as a safe haven for those in need. 1. United States. The United States has always been at the center of global immigration debates. In recent years, policies like Title 42, introduced during the pandemic, have made it easier to deport migrants without allowing them to apply for asylum. Although Title 42 has ended, the U.S. continues to focus on tightening border security. Efforts to stop illegal crossings at the southern border have ramped up, with many migrants being detained and deported. The debate over immigration in the U.S. is deeply divided. Some people argue stricter policies are necessary to protect the country, while others believe the U.S. should adopt a more compassionate approach. The issue remains one of the most polarizing topics in American politics. Immigration policies show us what a country values most: security, resources, or humanity. What do you think about these policies? Are they necessary, or do they go too far? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to AZ Travelaria for more eye-opening content. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.